If somebody leaked this document in concern for that, Glenn, I hate to say that in the grand scheme of things, looking at it with the camera pulled back, how this republic dealt with its problems, maybe that's deep throat. Maybe that's the way it had to be in order to create a larger, although sloppy kind of justice. I can't say I mind deeply.
I like John McWhorter a lot. I like his conversations with Glenn, but at times I can't help but notice that he gets too nuanced for his own good. And his take of supporting the outrageous leaking of a Supreme Court judgment in process is a demonstration of that.
Okay, so let me make my second point, if I may.
Yeah.
Which is the Supreme Court of the United States stands, and I'm sure Justice Roberts is keenly aware of this, at a critical historical juncture. People are talking about packing the court. A guy who a lot of people think, even if you concede that the 2016 election was fairly decided, Donald Trump appointed three justices to the United States Supreme Court, including one right within the shadow of his own electoral defeat, and one who took the place of someone who should have been confirmed, but who that rascal in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, kept from ever getting a vote. So the Supreme Court is in play. People talking about packing the court and what the Supreme Court is in play. Now somebody leaks a draft opinion. Why? In order to influence the midterm elections in 2022. You make this into a big brouhaha issue, and you can motivate the Democrats to come out, and you can discredit the Republicans to some degree. I mean, shouldn't we all be a little unsettled by the growing politicization, or are you going to tell me it's always been so, of the Supreme Court? This is the law, and I might even mention, you said it, not me, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and the way that Biden handled that. And we're in an era of fierce conflict over diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the Democrats are running absolutely full bore on it. We have a Black woman finally, after 258 years, however long it's been. Politicizing the Supreme Court is what I'm talking about. It's always been so.
Well, in this case, with the always, you'd have to talk about the whole history of the country and certain isolated episodes. But you're making me think about this. There are times when you've got to do the Liberty Valance thing. And what's going on with the Republicans right now? And I have to check myself, because I remember everybody talking about the country being in this unique existential crisis during the GWB administration. This is the worst it's ever been. Now you look back on that and it seems like an episode of West Wing. But I do feel like this is the worst, partly because of the weird thing of social media and its reign. And we have this Republican establishment that has this disproportionate power, despite being led partly by people who haven't got a whit of sense at all. And we have this Machiavellian person in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, clearly is about as close to amoral as any public figure that I've known lately who's intelligent. And this is the way it looks like it's going to be forever. If somebody leaked this document in concern for that, Glenn, I hate to say that in the grand scheme of things, looking at it with the camera pulled back, how this republic dealt with its problems, maybe that's deep throat. Maybe that's the way it had to be in order to create a larger, although sloppy kind of justice. I can't say I mind deeply. Now, maybe it wasn't leaked for that reason.
Oh, no.
But you can't go with it.
I'm not going to comment on whether Roe v. Wade should be overturned, but this leak is bad politics. It's setting precedent for all sorts of bad practices, and John, just because it satisfies his position, is okay with it. Constitutional processes should not be meddled with. They should, however, be challenged in the appropriate quarters. What happens the day Republicans are in a position to also leak a document to favor them for the quote-unquote greater good? This is bad politics, really bad, and if John cannot see that, I'm surprised.
I could disagree with you more, John.
I don't think it's going to have an effect, but if that's why the person did it, we're in.
Well, okay, so when Trump was president, stuff started coming out like he'd have a call with a Ford leader somewhere, and the next thing you know, the New York Times would know what they said in the telephone call. And a lot of stuff. And it was okay because it was Trump, and he was a fucking asshole, and he had a Muslim ban, and he was a racist. He questioned Barack Obama's birth certificate. He said,
I wouldn't justify it on the basis of that, but go ahead.
Well, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, if I'm not mistaken, during the election crisis of 2020, communicated to the Chinese government that notwithstanding turmoil within our ranks, not to worry. Any apparent semblance of aggressive action from us should not be interpreted as a threat. And if there were going to be a problem, I'll let you know. That was pretty unprecedented. He went over the head of the commander in chief to communicate with the Chinese government. If I've got my facts straight, this is the story that I heard. I heard people on cable television and in print call the president of the United States a traitor, say that he was being blackmailed by the head of state of a nuclear power who is our rival, with whom we are in effect at war now. I mean, I think the violation of norms of restraint in how it is that you talk about the president of the United States that were characteristic of the Trump era were unprecedented in my lifetime. I mean, of course, Nixon was Nixon. By the time Nixon went out, he was Nixon. But I never saw anything like it myself. And I think it was authorized by the fact that the guy was who he was. And a lot of people thought, it's an existential threat to the republic. Fuck him. That's what they thought. And all I'm trying to say is he's not president anymore, but that chicken is out of the hen house or whatever it is. Something has been loosed into the world here of a kind of lack of restraint or deference or something like that, people just think that it's a good and evil, it's black and white. This conservative court is going to overturn Roe, a woman's right to choose. We fought hard to keep people like Kavanaugh off the court, and Clarence Thomas, for that matter, off the court, precisely because there are too many Catholics on the courts. They're going to overturn Roe versus Wade. And that legitimates doing what might have been thought unthinkable in a prior time.
Hey, in case you didn't know, I wrote this totally kick-ass crime fiction novel, which also featured a debate on race and colonialism. One review describes it as fun and thought-provoking. You can get a copy on Amazon. The link is in the description below.
I hear you. Sometimes a little vigilante justice, without a doubt.
A little vigilante justice? This is the road downhill to perdition when constitutional processes are broken on a whim. This is not good. This is not justified.
You're right. How far does that go? I know what you mean. Maybe it made a certain sense 2-3 years ago, but is that going to be the way it is forever? And I know that that's a danger. I think that the slippery slope argument can be over-applied. I've sometimes wished that I were in a field where writing an article about that would make some sense, but that's not linguistics. But I'm not sure I see it. In this case, I think that it's as urgent as Trump's idiocy was. Just this fossilized Republican colossus that is basically determining what happens in this country on so many levels and making meaningful legislation impossible except by executive order. This isn't right. It isn't right. And I know that this Robert Caro ideal was really just something that existed during the middle decades of the 20th century. Maybe that's never going to happen again. But wow, the sclerotic nature of these things leads me to think that certain irregular actions are necessary because business as usual won't work, even if there's a uniquely charismatic leader, as we've seen with Barack Obama and what he quote unquote meant. Biden isn't charismatic, but who would be at this point? Who could get anything done with the Senate, in particular, the way it is? So I just worry.
Let me make a prediction. Your charisma is going to come from the right. You're going to have a smart governor. Maybe he's a governor of Florida. I don't know.
Or she, yeah.
Or she. Or maybe it's a black person.
They might be.
You can't rule that out. I mean, over the next 20 years.
It could happen.
They're going to have a counter-revolution against not only wokeness, but against this kind of soft left compromise with wokeness.
Mhm.
That constitutes the center of the Democratic Party. That constitutes the heartbeat of the intellectual left, of the journalistic mainstream, corporate, etc. There's a cultural backlash that's brewing. You see it in the schools and whatnot. The Latinos are peeling away from the Democratic Party. The race thing is bankrupt, Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. I mean, there's a kind of almost a caricature. I mean, they're like a cartoon that if you were trying to make up this thing. And I just think the wind is blowing in the other direction, and I think somebody can put it together. That's where I think the charisma is going to come from, and the people on the other side are going to go ballistic. They're going to say fascism is afoot. It's going to get very ugly, and people are so dug in, and. I mean, I was with one of my friends who was at the conference, who I don't want to name, who's a very liberal guy I've known for a long time. I mean, he's still talking about Barack Obama's birth certificate and stuff. I mean, he's still, it's people ask me whether I want to be right or be helpful. And I want to know, be helpful to what? You apparently know who you want to be helpful to. You say it's worth throwing a monkey wrench in the works in order to slow the machine down because the machine is off count. And you think
Yeah.
What do you think about John's comments? Let me know in the comment section below. Like and subscribe.